Oh, yay!
Yay! We did
It
it.
probably said that because you were joining. Yay! Hey, Mira, so good to see you.
Hey, Hannah, so wonderful to see you. You look fabulous as always.
Fabulous and festive. And
Yes.
you look beautiful, my dear
Oh,
friend.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Well,
So I
we're
love
in,
what you were saying about healthy gifts for the holidays. Like, this
yeah.
is such a wonderful way to shower love on those we care about. I know there are a lot of things that we tend to do that are typical for the holidays, but we can make a little bit of a shift and give them kombucha, which is great for the gut, or to look at the ingredients and choose things that are going to be nourishing. It's just so fabulous when we have the opportunity to do that.
Yes, and you are just so expert at looking at labels and ingredients. So tell us a little bit about you. Your moniker is the ingredient guru. What does that mean?
It's so funny because it has shifted over the years. In the beginning, it started about how to read the label and understand what's really in your food, because there are just so many different things that are done to our food that make them not a great choice at all. And I'm going to take my glasses off only because they keep glinting in the light. It's a little distracting. So Yes, definitely. Learning how to read the label, learning how to understand what's in our food and how it impacts our body, definitely huge. And then over time, it morphed into also including ingredients that nourish us. So adding those foods that are nutrient dense, adding those foods that are going to support our wellness and our body. And then it morphed again to include ingredients for a healthy life. Things like spiritual practices that center us, getting enough sleep, moving our body, being present with the universe, all those wonderful things, because we're more than just what we eat. We are whole body beings, and there are so many different aspects to us. And then it shifted another time. It's just like layering up. And it now also includes ingredients for awareness and mindfulness and preparedness to be able to face whatever's coming forward in a way that allows us to be really mindful and present rather than overwhelmed and reactive, to respond and not merely react.
Well, and what does that, I mean, the world so needs that right now, right? Like it is easy to get overwhelmed with everything that's going on in the world. And I'm not going to name specifics. I think we all
Yeah.
are aware of the many, many global dramas that are unfolding in this moment. And you speak to a really important point, which is when you're prepared, when you take care of those basic needs in advance, there's so much more calm. It is such a
Mhm.
way to get out of fight or flight and stay in rest and digest, which is what we know we need in order to repair our systems to stay healthy so that we don't make ourselves sick, literally, either by stress eating or just stressing in so many different ways.
It also allows us to be able to deal with what's in front of us. And here's the thing, it's not to say that stress is bad. Stress is not a bad thing. It can be a good thing. The challenge is if we're continually in a stressed out mode, or if we're so stressed that we can't focus, we lose executive function because we're all wrapped up in that stress bundle, that doesn't help anybody. And
What? That's never happened to me. How about you?
oh, never, ever, ever. Of course it has. I mean,
Yeah.
and here's the thing. I really believe that for so many of us, as we learn to be mindful and thoughtful, even if our initial response is that, oh my gosh, we then have the ability to step back, take a breath, and go, wait a minute, let's evaluate this. Let's stop and think, or let's stop and breathe before we just rush in. Yeah. And I also really feel that the more we learn how to do that, and I think it's a lifelong process. Like, I'm still learning, but I'm also at a point now where I'm fortunate enough to be able to teach others how to do this. And so we learn and support and grow together, which is fabulous. But the more we do this, the better able we are not only to take care of ourselves, but to take care of those we love and care about.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to just jump in right here and say that kombucha is something that has demonstrably been shown through research to help reduce the feelings of stress. So there's some really interesting research that came out of UC Texas Christian University, or UC Christian Texas. I can't remember. Slightly dyslexic, but in any case, people were provided a standard stress test, one that they use in a wide variety of research testing. But those who consumed kombucha first, even though their body had a physiological stress response, like they showed some inflammation, which, as we know, is not necessarily bad, it's the body doing what it's supposed to, they didn't feel stressed. And so this is where I flip that little meme on its head and say, drink kombucha, then keep calm. But you got to drink the kombucha first, because it's something that's going to help you to deal with those stress. And that's because it's an adaptogen. And there's so many wonderful adaptogens out there. Not everybody can enjoy adaptogens, but kombucha is one that, and tell us what an adaptogen is, because I know you know exactly what it is.
Yeah, so an adaptogen is a substance, usually nutritional, although there are other substances that can be as well, that support the body by going where it's needed. So instead of having a specific purpose, it has multiple purposes, and the body chooses what it needs and how to incorporate this adaptogenic substance into it. And one of the most beautiful things about kombucha, and part of the reason I recommend it for so many people, is that it is not only supportive for the gut because of all of the beautiful bacteria and wonderful support that it gives there, it's deeply nourishing on a lot of different levels. And most of us tend to be living in a somewhat depleted state. Our modern life does not allow us to stay in good balance. And even though we perhaps focus on things like adding holistically healthy lifestyle patterns and other things like that, we also need to remember to add in supportive, nutrient dense things like kombucha so that our body can continue to stay in balance, because it's not one of these things where, oh, I'm balanced now, I'll never be out of balance again. Like, it's something we need regular infusion of.
Absolutely. Well, it's always shifting, right? And so it's more than balance. I had this great conversation with another gal on here, and she said, instead of thinking of it as balance, think of it as rhythm. Right? Like, we're always at some point going to get thrown off our rhythm, but as soon as we can get ourselves back into that rhythm, the more we'll be able to surf those waves of change that are constantly coming towards us. And you're absolutely right. Kombucha, because it's made from tea, high in vitamin C, has amino acids, has B vitamins in trace amounts. And again, these aren't necessarily in massive mega doses, which, truth be told, isn't always what we need. However, they're in that living form, so your body can instantly uptake and utilize those nutrients. And that is incredibly valuable. And then I like to combine it with a ritual, just because you were talking about mindful practices. So I like to do a little blessing with my booch, or I'll do this with a glass of water. You really could do it with anything. And in fact, I think it's part of the reason why you might say grace before you eat your food, is just to infuse to take that moment, put yourself into a space of gratitude, give a little blessing, abundance, whatever it is you're feeling lack in your life. Just giving that to yourself in that moment can really then supercharge whatever you're going to put into your body in a really positive way.
Absolutely. And one other point that I want to share is that as a liquid, kombucha is also such a fabulous choice. Not that we want it to be our only source of hydration, but the vast majority of us are walking around chronically dehydrated. So anything that can help hydrate the body that also has other beneficial elements to it is a great choice.
Well, especially because water, like, I grew up drinking water and thinking it was the worst thing in the world. And what I finally realized is that's because if it was tap water, it probably had chlorine and fluoride that my body just wasn't happy receiving. And if it was filtered water, there was a lack of minerality or nutrients to it. And so I spiked my water, if you will, not with alcohol, but with sea salt, with lemon, with citrus. So that naturally then remineralizes it and gives it a pop of flavor, but in an amount that then I know when I'm drinking it, it's not just a liquid passing over surfaces, but that salt really helps us to absorb that hydration into our cells.
And one of the things that I love to do with kombucha, which you taught me, is my favorite way to drink it is to make kombucha spritzers.
Yes, those
Yay.
are so fun. I love adding a little mineral water. It gets a little extra bubbly. You can do a twist. I even throw in a pop of juice every once in a while if I want to shift the flavor profile. So that could be a little lemon. That could be a little fruit juice, whatever is around. So I like to make my own mocktails with the kombucha as well. So there are so many great ways we can enjoy it. And of course, I love kombucha, but what are some other tips for the holidays to stay hydrated, to stay making choices that are ultimately going to support health instead of take away from it?
I am a big fan of taking tea, because again, we're not going to drink kombucha all day long. Like that could be very overwhelming to our gut if that was our only source of hydration. So if we're looking for something else, I love to take a cup of tea and then add in something like a splash of juice, depending on what flavor it is. Citrus is definitely a good choice, but also fruits. You can throw those in there, or you can add in some apple and some spices. Those are really great. And the spices are so good for us and really supportive. Another thing that I absolutely love, another mutual friend of ours, is Sip Herbals. They're beautiful,
Yes.
coffee alternatives, because then we're not getting all that caffeine. We're not getting all hopped up, but we're getting the benefit of chicory and dandelion and just nourishing our body. And it tastes so good. Why would you not want to do that? So looking for things that can be, and the nice thing is a lot of these things, whether it's tea or the Sip Herbals or even water with different things in it, you can do that cold, room temperature, warm, like you choose what your body needs right now.
I love that suggestion. And Sip Herbals is really great. Like you said, it has all of these wonderful gut supportive and nutritive elements to it. It has that pungent, intense flavor
Mhm.
like a coffee. You can still put your cream or whatever you want in there. And it's so delicious without that acidity, without having that negative impact on the body, and without the crazy ride of coffee. And, like you said, tea also has caffeine, but it also has L-theanine, which it
Mhm.
helps you to get a stimulated, focused energy as opposed to taking the roller coaster and feeling like you need a major nap on the other end of it. And Black Cap here has said, stay away from alcohol. And, I find that drinking kombucha leads me to desire alcohol less.
Mm.
Or I combine it with the kombucha because it supports a healthy liver. And so it's that little bit of antidote to the poison that I'm taking in. So that way I don't feel the negative impacts only of the alcohol. So there's lots of great ways we can incorporate kombucha, whether as that complex mocktail flavor that you're craving, but without any alcohol, or of course as a wonderful mixer.
Another thing that I want to mention, just because of the time of year that we're heading into, where it's getting so cold and everything, you have a fabulous, and actually this is reminding me I need to order it for this year, your elderberry kit to make the
Yes,
elderberry syrup. That is such a wonderful thing. And just a spoonful of that a day prophylactically, if you're under the weather and you do happen to come down with the crud of some kind, then you can take a little bit more of that. But that is beautiful in a tea. It's beautiful in a kombucha spritzer. You can just take it straight, but it's a little overwhelming to me because that's a lot of sugar in that
it
spoonful.
is.
But, that's another great way that it's a nutraceutical, plant-based, supportive way to really maintain health and well-being.
Absolute one. It's got the ginger, it's got the cinnamon, which is warm. Both of those are warming. And of course, we know ginger is helpful and supportive for digestion and immunity. And then, of course, all the orange peel with the citrus. And so and the smell of it, right? Like when we made
Mhm.
it together, you're in my elderberry course. So
Yeah.
if anyone
Oh.
out there needs some help, Mira and I have an elderberry course on the Kombucha Camp site that will also walk you through that process. But just you're right. This time of year, it fills the home with this
Mhm.
lovely potpourri of amazing warming spices. And I love to do it as what I call an elderberry soother. So this is where I take it, I put it in hot water, I do a squeeze of fresh citrus, lime or lemon, and just it's so yummy like that and warming, and it's warming my hands. So that's a really wonderful way to keep warm and to keep your immune system in a great, finely tuned and ready to take
Mhm.
on whatever it might encounter. So
Absolutely.
we're talking about all these great things we can do to stay healthy during the holidays. However, I know you have some really wonderful programs that support people, not just at this time of
Mhm.
year, but all year long. Why don't you share some of those programs with us? I know Preparedness Pantry is absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic. Why don't we start there?
Sure, that's a great place to start. I think so. My tagline for that is the best time to prepare for an emergency is before there is one. And unfortunately, for so many of us, we tend to just sort of bump along, living our lives, not really thinking about the fact that there could be something happening. And it's not that I'm trying to encourage you to be a worrywart or to stress unnecessarily. I'm also, just to be really clear, I'm not talking, end of the world as we know it, zombies are coming. I mean, if you want to prepare for that, you have my full support, like go for it, but that's not what I teach. I teach people how to make sure that you have the supplies that you need on hand to support your family in an emergency. And generally, that includes 14 to 30 days worth of food and hydration and first aid, and also how to have a good emergency kit in your car in case you have to leave. Just being able to be aware of what's going on. And then part of the reason that I do that is because most people don't prepare until they see the announcement. Either it comes on your alert on your phone, it's on the TV, it's on the radio, whatever. It says hurricane coming or blizzard coming or something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. And then everybody rushes to the grocery store all at the same time. And first of all, they wind up buying out stuff. So there might not be what you want there. And sadly, some people, like you just look and their cart is full of potato chips and cereal and cookies. And I'm thinking that is not going to nourish you in an emergency. That's not going to help anybody. I would rather be in the position where I either A, don't have to go to the store at all, or B, I look around and I'm like, we could use a few more veggies. Nobody is buying out the veggie section, I promise you. So I go, I get my veggies, I leave. I'm good. And knowing that you can have resources for light, for food, for water, for medical needs, all of that is really, really important. So that's the Preparedness Pantry Masterclass. And
And
then
also talk about rotating those supplies, because I feel like sometimes, true confession, I have random things I purchased when the pandemic was announced, which was years ago, still sitting in the bottom of my pantry untouched because I didn't end up needing them.
yeah.
And so then I had this like, well, I bought this stuff and will I ever use it? So just curious if there's also some information on how to rotate through your supplies so you don't end up with just random old supplies.
Yes, absolutely. And we will come back to that. But there's one more point that I wanted to make, which is that sometimes at a certain time of year, depending on where you live, the big box stores know that it's, hurricane season or flood season or whatever. And they start hauling out these, I call it the big box of crap. They haul out these boxes that claim that they have 172 meals in the box. It's emergency supplies. And so a lot of people think that they're just, oh, I can spend $97 and I can have this. What a great deal. The problem is nobody reads the label. There's way too many ingredients in there. Most of those ingredients are not good for you. And one thing that box doesn't clearly tell you is just how much water you need to have on hand to rehydrate everything that's in there. So isn't it better to have food that you want to eat? You know what's in your pantry because you're the one who put it there, and it's things that are going to nourish you. And yes, you bring up a very good point. So I feel people should have two pantries. You should have your everyday pantry. That's the one you cook out of. And then you should have your preparedness pantry. That's the one for longer storage. And then, except for fresh produce or things like that, you're going to refill your everyday pantry from your preparedness pantry. And then when you go shopping, you're going to shop for your preparedness pantry. So I would encourage you to rotate in all those things that you have in the bottom of the pantry, start moving those up and rotating those into your everyday. And if you want to, and I encourage you to do this, if you want to make sure that you have a preparedness stock, rotate those up and replace those. So you're always moving things up the chain. And I do talk about a couple of different strategies that can help people do that so that we're making sure that we don't wind up 5 years later looking at something and going, well, that expired 3 years ago. Don't know that I want to eat it. And the other thing that's so super important about having that awareness of what's in your pantry is to also make sure that you're filling your preparedness pantry with the foods that your family will eat. So sometimes I do pantry consults for people. Like you can look up
Nice.
how to do that with me, but people want to go through their individual pantry. And one family in particular that I talked to not that long ago, she was like, "Yeah, I bought 20 pounds of oatmeal." And I'm thinking, there's 3 kids in her family, by the way. So there's 5 people. And I'm thinking, 20 pounds is a lot of oatmeal. And I said, "Wow, do you use a lot of oatmeal?" And she's like, "No, but I figure if we're hungry, we'll eat it." Like, don't do that. Don't buy something just because, like, yes, 20 pounds of oatmeal was probably really cheap. Oatmeal's not that expensive. But if your family's not going to eat it, or if it's going to get to the point where they're like, oatmeal again, like nobody's going to be happy. Have foods that you want to eat on hand. Don't buy, dry beans if you don't know how to rehydrate them. I'm not opposed to canned food. I just want you to make sure that it doesn't have nasty ingredients in it, and that as best you can, that you're buying cans that are not lined with BPA. Other than that, like, I have canned food in my pantry. I think that can be a reasonable thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think some people are like, well, I have to do it the right way or the only way. And they get caught up on that instead of like, well, what makes sense and what's easy
Mhm.
to do? And yes, if you are someone who loves to can and preserve, and I know you are one of those people, Mira, then
Yeah.
absolutely you can. I've been to your kitchen, I've seen your pantry, I've seen all of your jars of creations stocked up. And, if that's something that resonates with you that you enjoy doing, go that route. But if that is something you simply don't have time for, then I love how you're offering a wide variety of ways to create that pantry without creating extra stress in the process
Mhm.
of making it.
And I think it's also one of the things that a lot of people get overwhelmed about when they first start their preparedness journey is thinking that you have to go spend $1,000 to buy everything. My response is no, you don't. I say start where you are. If all you can do is spend $5 every time you grocery shop to buy a couple of extra things that you don't need right now that you can put in your preparedness pantry, then that's what you do. If you have a little more money, then do something else. If you decide that water is the big thing, buy yourself some aquatainers. And in the class, I talk about how to make sure that you're being reasonable about how to preserve that water, because you can't just throw it in a container and leave it there for an extended period of time. Like, learn how to do those things, but do one thing at a time. We are always on a journey. I have, the best plan I can for my family, but even I'm always looking to learn more and do better. And when I learn more, I teach more. Because one of the things, like, we just had preparedness pantry office hours today in my online community. It's called the kitchen table. And that's where you get all the classes and the ebooks and everything. We had office hours today so I could teach people more stuff. It's not just about taking the class, it's about continuing to learn together so that we can be as prepared and as supportive as we can for ourselves, our family, our neighbors. Like, if everybody knows how to do things, then it makes it easier for all of us to do well if there does happen to be an emergency situation.
Well, and you bring up that great point of community, because I think that's something that's been kind of rent apart in a lot of ways over the last several years. And we're all really thirsty, I think, to come back together and find where we can meet like minds and people who care about the same types of things. And sometimes that's the person next door, and sometimes it's the person halfway around the world. And the great thing, of course, about the internet and social media is we live in a day and age when we can connect with people and feel deeply connected to people who aren't proximally close to us. And so I love that you have a support group where this isn't just, here's a class, maybe you'll do it, maybe you won't. However, there's an ongoing support system, because I'm guilty of that too. I'll be like, yes, I'm going to do this. I sign up. And then the energy fades. But to know that there's a group supporting throughout that process. And there's other courses you teach. Is that right, Mira?
Yeah, so in that community, we also have the 21-day nutrition reset, which helps people build those foundational habits. It's very easy to get off track, and sometimes you just need a recentering. So that's what that class is for. And next year, at the beginning of next year, we're adding in a new module. It's the 30-day mindful eating program. So that's going to be absolutely wonderful, because we all could learn how to slow down, reconnect with our emotions and our relationship with food. So that's part of the 21 days. I also have a migraine masterclass. So for anyone who struggles with migraines, this is a great class that helps you understand through 4 modules how to possibly get a handle on the type of migraine that you're having and what to do about it. We also have the library, which has a bunch of ebooks. We just added a whole new section to the library, and it has handouts for different things that are great. So you can access all of that. And then we have a really, really fun, I call it the Healthy Readers Book Club. Every year we read 6 amazing books that have to do with health, wellness, nutrition, the environment, all kinds of things. And it's a guided book club, because as we're reading the book, I take us deeper into the experience by looking up videos or other research that ties into what the author is talking about, so that we can really gain a deeper knowledge than just reading it and putting it back on the shelf.
Well, I love that, because clearly, Mira, you are someone who's committed to learning, to always improving yourself through learning more things. And I absolutely love that. So if you're someone who's also dedicated on this journey with a passion for wanting to learn more, with knowing you can't just consume it all at once, and wanting to do bite-sized pieces, this sounds like a really fabulous way to get this information in a really deep, supportive community fashion. So this is wonderful. So that's called the kitchen table, is that right?
Yep. It's called the kitchen table. And the great thing about it is there's all this information, all these resources, tons of stuff, and it's only $29 a month. Like, it's super cheap. So you can just come in and participate. And one of the things I love the most about it, and the reason I call it the kitchen table, for me, I am all about community. I am all about wanting to gather people together so we can support each other, learn and grow, and be there for each other. And like you said, sometimes we have to go a little further afield than our very own neighborhood. So this is great, because we have people from all over. It's like pulling up a chair to the kitchen table with a cup of your favorite beverage, whether it's kombucha or tea or something else, and being there together in community. So that's why I call it the kitchen table.
I can attest that Mira is that person, having attended a retreat with her at her home. It was so lovely, and she's so generous with how she treats all of her guests. And yes, you are a true lover of people, and that really comes through in your presentation and your passion for what you do. So before we go today, obviously we've talked about many different things. What are just some last few tips you might have for folks in this holiday season, just to help make it through, help make a couple of better choices so that you don't feel so miserable later?
I really, first of all, want to thank you. And I loved having you at the house. It was great. And I'm hoping one of these days we can do that retreat again, because that was amazing. I also want to encourage everyone to remember, community is where we find it and how we build it. It's about figuring out what works for you and then finding a way to make that happen. Because in this day and age, with so many things going on, especially in the wake of those pandemic years, we've sort of lost that ability. It's not as easy as it used to be. We have to be much more mindful and much more intentional about it. Now, for holiday, I have 3 top tips that I want to share for the holidays that I think will make it easier for people. And the first one is to really learn to check in with yourself. It is okay to say no. We do not have to say yes to every single thing that's out there, especially if it's going to be overwhelming for you or it doesn't fit. I'll give you an example. I was recently invited to a cookie exchange. And I normally love cookie exchanges. I love cookies, and it would be a lot of fun. But I also know that I eat gluten free. And so I would bring gluten free cookies to this party, and everybody else would be making cookies that I couldn't eat. I would have a house full of dozens of cookies that I can't eat. That's not really a good choice. And so I wrote to the hostess and I said, look, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to be able to do this, but can we get together another time? And indeed, we're going to do that. So I'll get to see her, but it's okay to say no. Another thing to remember is that if you are going to a party or an event or a special dinner or something like that, I really, unless it's a sit down affair, and most of these things usually at this time of year are buffet style, I encourage people to walk through that buffet line twice. The first time you're going through just to see what's there, because typically when we go through a buffet line, what do? We take, I'll take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And by the end, we have a plate that's like this big. And guess what? If it's on our plate, we eat it. You go through the line once to see what's there and then sit and think for a second, what do I really want? And maybe there's, 3 different kinds of something. Pick the one you want the most. Go back through the line and just make a reasonable plate. You will feel so much better. You can go back through the line a second time if you need to. Sorry, a third time to fill your plate a second time if you need to, but don't take a little bit of everything. And then the last thing that I have is to make sure that you build in those practices that have meaning for you. It doesn't have to include anybody else if you don't want to. I know there are some people who have these end of year rituals that they do that are meaningful to them and they do them by themselves. That's fine, but find something that is a wonderful centering point for you to get you through the holidays and then begin that transitory period into this essentially artificial construct that we've created that says it's a new year, it's a new everything. No, it's the passage of time, and we honor the seasons by being responsive to that passage of time. But we also want to make sure that we are doing something that supports that holistic part of us that is seeking that meaning, that shift, that resonance as we move into a new year.
I love these tips, Mira. So first of all, just to recap, the first one is like healthy boundaries. I mean, all of them are healthy boundaries, which makes a healthy culture, as we say over here. Because one is just have a healthy boundary of what's actually in alignment for you and not feeling like you have to say yes to everything. That was a great example. The second one you said was don't say yes to everything on the buffet table. Be conscious and choose those things that are going to bring you joy or going to serve you in that moment and help you feel lighter and happier about the choices you've made as opposed to, overwhelmed with putting too much on the plate, literally. And then third, that practice. So a practice for me, I would love to share, because I think we share this in common, is sitting down and I do a tarot spread for the new year. So I love to do this. I do a card for every month of the year. In fact, my card for December feels really appropriate. It's the 2 of Swords, peace. It's feeling really good right now. That is the energy of this month. But that's a way that I like to tune in and reflect with myself. Other people, it may be writing down resolutions or goals for the year. I know you also have like a really huge calendar where you like to plan all kinds of fun stuff on it. So what is the ritual that you like to do? There it is, the really big calendar. So what are one or two of the rituals that you personally like to engage in, just to give folks some ideas?
Sure. So one of my absolute favorite rituals, I have a jar, I call it my gratitude jar. And every time I go through the year that I have something to be grateful for, it doesn't matter how big or how small, but it's just something that I'm like, wow, I'm really grateful for this. I write it down on a little piece of paper and I put it in the jar. And at the end of the year, New Year's Eve, I open the jar and I dump out all the pieces of paper and I read all of them. And the surprising thing is, some of the things I remember, but most of it are just fleeting moments that I forgot. But because I wrote it down, I get to experience them all over again. And then I release them and I start the jar again. So that's one. The other one that I do is after the last of the winter holidays is over, so usually Boxing Day, I sit down and I write a letter of intention for the year ahead. And one of the things that is, I can feel my blood pressure dropping and myself slowing down as I even think about this. One of the things that I love about this practice is it really is a very solitary practice. It forces you to sit and think and be intentional about what happened in the year prior and what you want to bring into the new year so that you are able to like just honor that passage of time, and our growth as humans comes from that intentionality. So those are mine, and I know you have some. I'd love to hear what you do.
Yes, well, I mentioned the tarot card, so that is a way for me to reflect on the full year because I have such a dedicated practice. I do one for every month, I do one for every week of every month, and I do one for every day. And so I like to go through and as every week comes to a close, I then journal about what happened during that week. And so it's a great way for me to just go back through the year to see the progress that has happened, to see how certain things have played out. And then I do also like to, I've just started this actually recently, is choosing a word. So my word this year
Mm.
was radiate. And I feel like I definitely showed my sunny self out there, which feels really good. And I'm waiting right now. I'm in that period of like, what's the word for next year? There's been so much change and transition in my life that I'm really excited to embrace what's next. And maybe what's next is just embracing the unknown, and allowing what is to be to unfold, which is always a little bit of a scary practice because I feel for myself personally, when I've got that clear focused vision, I know exactly what I'm doing, I'm trucking along. And when I don't have that and it's a little more diffuse, it's a little like, oh, falling in the universe. I always land on my feet, of course, but I just love, I just wonder how that will play out. But those are definitely some of them. And of course, time with family and making sure I'm connecting with people I love and letting them know I care about them. And, just making sure I'm sending out those messages of love to the people I really care about the most.
That's such a lovely thing. And I agree with you. The word of the year, I've been doing that for I think 8 years now. And it's amazing how much your word can impact your life. My word this year was illuminate. And it's astonishing when I look back over the year how often it showed up even when I wasn't really paying attention. And then after something would happen, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's my word. Like it's fabulous, the energy that that can bring. And you are just so vibrant in all you do. And I love how you share and teach and nurture and support so many people by sharing things like this and really helping them to see that there is a way that we can bring this to our lives and help add or layer on more beautiful things to this existence that we have.
Absolutely. Well, one of our mottos is we grow together. And I love that over the years of our friendship, we continue to support each other's evolution and, of course, everyone out there. And so just really appreciate you being here today, Mira. One more time, where can people find you?
So the best place to find me is at theingredientguru.com. That's also my YouTube, all my socials, like everything The Ingredient Guru.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being here, Mira. I hope you have a
Thank you
lovely
for
rest of your
having
day. I'll
me.
see you soon.
Yes, you too. Bye, dear.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this preview here on YouTube. If you'd like to hear the rest of this interview, along with other useful resources such as show notes, links, and special offers, we'd love to extend an invitation for you to join our Kombucha Camp Plus Bubbles with Benefits member rewards program. By becoming a member, you'll earn bubbles with every Kombucha Camp purchase for free products, and that's not all. We also offer birthday Booch Day rewards, access to members-only sales, high-quality bonus content, including Kombucha Clutch Hangs with me, the Kombucha Mama, and my special guests, a free digital brew journal to track your master brews and experiments, and more. Now here's the best part. It is only $7.99 a month, or $79.99 for the year. You get 2 months free with the annual membership. You can learn more and join our Bubbles with Benefits program at kombuchacamp.com/kombuchacamp+.html. Don't forget, that's camp with a K, because we're cute and clever over here. And don't forget, trust your gut.